Nice to chat to you. I've watched all of it.
Have you?
Yep.
What do you think?
All of
Off
it.
the record.
I've really enjoyed it. I was just saying, I got the chance to speak to Matt and Nick just there, and I was just saying that I was listening back to an interview with Nick where he said that about art being challenging and about how just that idea of we watch so much stuff that's kind of bland.
Yeah.
And really morally obvious, and there's just this idea to kind of like really question yourself while watching things, and it's just a bit of a breath of fresh air, to be honest.
Great.
So thanks.
Oh, thank you. They haven't been slagging me off.
Pete, I'm really interested in how this project started with you, you know, in terms of, because obviously the journey of this character is like 20 years, you know, ago in terms of with Nick's first kind of, I guess, the start of the journey with this character with him. How did it present itself to you and how did you get involved?
So I hadn't read the book, despite being a huge Nick Cave fan, I hadn't read the book and was approached by Clark and Will Films, who I'd worked with on a series called Somewhere Boy. And they asked me if I'd read this book. And I was camping at the time, but went to the local bookshop, picked up the book, started reading it, and just thought, I don't know how are you supposed to do this? Like, it's wild, you know?
Yeah.
And I think what I found terrifying, not just the sort of how you sort of translate this insane book in you know, the mechanics of how you translate this insane book into a TV show, but also how it made me feel, I think, terrified me, because I understood it and it spoke to me in a way that I kind of almost wish it didn't.
Yeah,
and
so you buddy.
Exactly that, yeah, which is what kind of I realised, which is why I realised I sort of needed to do it and wanted to do it, and why people, I think, needed to see it.
Yeah.
And that was my pitch to Clark and Moore then when I went and spoke to them about it, I understand this in ways that I kind of wish I didn't. And I think we need to bring this to the screen.
Yeah.
So
and was it always going to be episodic?
Yes, it had been developed before as a film, you know, in various different stages, and I've not read any of those scripts. Yeah, for us it was always a TV series,
Yeah. And then, so where did you start then, you know, in terms of, you know, you kind of sketch out these episodes and what you take from the book, but then also what you want to, you know, go into deeper or avoid, you know. It's a whole journey, I imagine, for you, and also the journey that the script takes from draft to draft as well.
Oh, totally, yeah. I mean, I read the book a load of times, then scribbled all over it in a million different notes, and then just went and spoke endlessly to Clark about just trying to work out how on earth you even begin this, you know, and I think appreciating that it's such a different language, you know, the book is a brilliant, brilliant book, but a TV show is so different, and while I think, you know, the result has to be the same, and I think, you know, we need to connect and confront an audience in the same way that the book does, the approach has to be different. And realising that and feeling sort of emboldened or bold enough to sort of just tear up what we needed to tear up, but also remain entirely true to the spirit and the tone and you know, and the characters and a lot of the story of the book, but feel free to invent and so as a result I banned any mention of Nick Cave from my house and banned any of his music just because I didn't want to be intimidated, you know, while I wrote the pilot. And then I met him and you know, and then it was fine.
Well, I guess it must be incredibly encouraging where he reads, like, you know, a kind of draft of an episode and he's like, yes. That's great kind of encouragement for you in terms of, you know, the original source material coming from him.
I mean, I've never been more terrified than the first meeting when I was going to get his notes, and his note, you know, he said I've got a big note, and I sort of got my pen ready, you know, ready to sort of, you know, think, oh, here we go, like a page one rewrite. What have I got wrong, and how much trouble am I in? And his big note was that he was wearing the wrong shoes in one particular scene. I thought, oh, right. Which he was quite upset about, by the way. So I just changed the shoes, and then it was fine, and he was really happy with the rest. I know, you know. Then moving on, you know, the sort of even across the episodes where he invented entirely new characters and other storylines. He was so had some big notes and big thoughts, all of which were great, but was really collaborative and really open to it all, and really supportive. So a great collaborator, really.
Do you think it could have been set anywhere else except Brighton?
I think there's something about those seaside towns, you know, the sort of towns where everyone goes to have a wild time, and yet it's just a town where people live, you know, and there's that atmosphere of abandon mixed with domesticity and everyday life that is thrilling, you know. So no, I don't think so. I think there's something very Brighton about it, which isn't to say I don't think it translates, because I think ultimately, you know, while that provides a brilliant setting, I think the themes we're dealing with are so kind of universal and timeless.
Yeah.
I don't think you need to know Brighton, you know.
Yeah,
but I think it certainly allows us to tell that story, you know, as well as we can.
And that kind of time period as well, you know, and you know, kind of the West Pier fire being almost that kind of time stamp in a way in terms of where and when we are, kind of in a way, is a really clever kind of, I don't know, sort of character almost in a way within it.
Yeah, totally. And also I think having it a sort of period piece, but it's only 20 years ago, or just a bit more, but allows us to deal with things without an audience feeling like they're being lectured, because there's almost that sort of distance, and while it does speak to you and it does resonate, it doesn't feel like we're sort of, talking so particularly of a time.
Yeah.
Because like I say, I think the things we're dealing with aren't of now, they're universal and timeless,
Yeah. And in terms of when you're writing, the script and thinking about those locations and how much detail you go into within the script sort of thing, because, that you're talking about it being set in Brighton and that period and what that is, it's a character, it's got emotion, it's got kind of attachments to where we find the characters in different situations and stuff. How much detail do you go into in your script in terms of about the locations and where these characters are experiencing things and going through different scenarios?
I go into a lot of detail, and even with the music and things, and I sort of do that terrible thing that everyone's told not to do, of like almost directing on the page, because I need to know that I don't know, I need to sort of feel as though the scene is as enriched as it possibly can be, to the reader, and then of course the director comes in and tears it all up. Anyway, do you know what I mean? And you have to accept, and recalibrate. Oh, that's not exactly how I envisaged it, but the great thing about working with brilliant people is that it's better, because Isabel's a far better director than I would ever be, and Matt's obviously a far better actor than I would ever be, and so they come in and make these things far better than I'd ever had them in my head, which is great,
But when you see that kind of translation of you've written in so much detail, a scene in a location, and then you see it in the reality of, what's that like? The kind of, because you're painting pictures.
Yeah.
And then they're interpreting that.
They're scribbling all over those
great pictures. They are ruining it. No, they're not at all. But
there's often a slight recalibration, but it's only ever early on, because then, then you realise that it's all so much better. That like Isabella's sort of visual style is different to how I'd imagined it. I'd imagined a sort of kind of more neon, sort of poppier kind of, but actually what she's done is sort of made it grounded and real, and it elevates the story so much. It makes it so much better. Yeah. I'm so relieved that how different it is. It's so much better than I had in my head, because she's, like I say, it's brilliant.
Are there certain locations that you think are important to Bunny and the story within the show?
God, that's a good question. I think it's his stomping ground. It's where he's safe. It's where he's sort of master of his domain. I think this is his area. I think that's why it's almost we sort of reference weirdly Apocalypse Now in the development of it, because there's this sense that the further you go down the river, the further you are from anything you recognise, and the wilder and wilder things are getting. I think it has that sort of road movie aspect of he's now leaving everything he knows, where he is the man, and as he's emotionally falling apart, he's also getting less comfort in his surroundings and where he is, and he's sort of feeling ever more kind of adrift.
And the cars as well are like they're it's so interesting, just in terms of there's a lot happens in cars. And it's really interesting in terms of how he is within the car and outside the car as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, in the book it's a yellow Fiat Punto, and the reason we changed it is that, the practical concerns of trying to shoot in a tiny little yellow Fiat Punto, because we couldn't find a convertible one. I think there's one in the whole of Europe.
Who knew?
For sale. I know, right. So we had to change that, but also I think, the more grounded we made the character and the show, the more realistic, we didn't want to make it sort of overtly comic. But also there's a moment at which he switches cars, and it's a real kind of line crossed, and a moment where you realise everything's gone very, very wrong now.
Yeah. And seeing that young, Bunny Jr. come to life through extraordinary performance, Raphael.
Isn't he brilliant?
Just incredible. What's that like to see in terms of how you wrote that character, to seeing this young, inexperienced young boy just interpret that?
It was amazing. The journey he goes on is extraordinarily complex, and I think it's for most men a kind of lifetime's journey. That relationship you have with your father, from idol to flawed human being, and for Bunny Jr. it happens in such a sort of shortened amount of time, and to get an actor to portray that is of any age is amazing. So for a 9-year-old boy to pull it off is wild. I mean, I think he's absolutely brilliant, and the loveliest boy. Yeah, it's so great. I'm so excited to see what he does next as well. I know, yeah. Congratulations, Pete. So great to chat to you. Thanks so much. So nice to meet you. Thank you so much for your time. Yeah, really appreciate it.